Right guys, so we're back today for part 2 of the secrets of koi keeping, and in this particular episode we are looking at selection. By this in particular we're focusing on koi selection and primarily new koi at that time when you're going to purchase it. And what I really want to focus in on today is maximising that budget for you to get the absolute best quality fish that you can at the time of making a new purchase. Now, there's going to be a lot of sort of realism in this and managing expectations, which I think is important, and some people, especially some retailers, can fail to do as well, possibly from not having a full understanding of what's going on in the market outside of the UK and in Japan, to be honest. So I'm going to guide you through that process and just give you my opinion on basically where you want to be in order to get the most fish for your budget, and just basically give you the facts and allow you to sort of make your decisions on from there, really. So yeah, I mean, koi in general, good koi never come cheap. If you're seeing a bargain out there or what seems to be a bargain, always look twice, because more often than not it does seem too good to be true. I've had that one trip me up myself over the years, so do pay attention if something is looking like it is just too good. Really pay attention on looking for what could be the problem. It could be circumstances of a particular retailer, to be honest. There are times of the year when they need to clear stock off or things like that, and you can take advantage of it. But in a normal, sort of competitive market, pay attention if something looks a little bit too cheap, because there could just be something there that's going to catch you out at some point. So there's my first sort of tip on that one. Next one. So yeah, like I said, good quality koi, not cheap. So how do you get the very best fish for your budget? So I think this is going to be, probably a process of unlearning for more experienced koi keepers, and some of this may be new information if you're new into the hobby. But first place I would start is obviously looking at breeders when you're buying fish. This is something that you're really probably going to get into and should get into if you want to have a real good understanding of what you're buying. Now, breeders are just like brands that in any industry. We'll take fashion, for example. Your big brands, fashion labels go for serious prices for what in essence sometimes looks like the same product. With koi, it's a little bit different. Big brands, I mean, straight away, because we've done a lot of work with it, Dainichi springs to mind. So, the biggest brand in koi up there with Sakai, Momotaro, the top three that there are. The fish from there command serious prices because of the quality of the lineage. It's not just what you're seeing at Tosai and Nisai. You might see the odd fish of comparable quality at other farms with lesser brand, a bit cheaper, but they've not got the guarantee of the genetics behind them. And when I say guarantee, it's not completely guaranteed, it never is. But what you've got is a proven track record with these guys, proven track record of Dainichi producing Showa over 80 cm, Kohaku 90 cm to a metre, Momotaro consistently producing Gosanki over a metre. This is not something that's just happened once, it happens time and time again. The parent fish that they're coming from are of that similar sort of size. It's in the breeding, it's in the DNA. So if you're looking at two Tosai that you to your eye possibly seem of similar quality at that point, one's Dainichi, one's from, let's say, Suzuki. That's a really small Showa breeder. They could look both great at Tosai. In fact, probably more than likely the Suzuki fish would possibly look better at Tosai, knowing them, and the Dainichi fish not so much. But what's happening there is, with a lot of the Dainichi fish, it takes time for the quality to really show through. And where you're going to see it is as those fish even hit potentially Nisai, where that Suzuki Nisai is probably going to struggle to grow all that much, and its body might look a little bit uncomfortable if you force it, whereas the Dainichi fish, I know from experience, you push them hard, they just take it most of the time because the genetics are there to handle it. So you've really got to pay attention to that, because the demand for Dainichi stuff is through the roof, as it is with all these big farms, and that's what drives the pricing. As I've seen in the auctions when I'm buying the Dainichi fish, it's incredibly competitive. There's so many fish all the time, but the lowest entry prices are still much higher than higher level fish at other farms. So it's a toss up between what you want to do there with your budget, and that's important to pay attention to, because what you might be finding is If the fish, the sort of size and growth elements and the longevity aren't major aspects for you, is it worth paying the premium for a Dainichi fish? Whereas, you could use that budget of someone, in the show at the likes of Suzuki and probably get a much more attractive, appealing looking fish for you for much less money. And if you understand that better and you're more comfortable, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So paying attention to breeder is massively important. And to sort of flip this on its head as well as you move sort of, at the higher end of the hobby, also something I'm not a fan of doing and not keen on is buying fish from a branded breeder when you haven't quite got the budget to stretch to buy in the sort of true quality from that breeder, if that makes sense. So from that, I mean, the entry level at Dainichi, we can get them in the market at maybe £300, £400, £500 as Tosai. Would I do it? Would I buy them fish? No, not whatsoever. Because although, yes, they're sharing the same genetics, that's right, in other areas of quality, so skin quality, pattern, sometimes body shape as well, although the traits are quite good across the board. What I would find is at those price levels, I'd get much better fish or other breeders for the price point. So just one great example I always use while we're on Dainichi again, just around the corner from that farm, I'm talking a couple of 100 metres, is Hoshikin. Now, Hoshikin is an incredibly high-level breeder himself, but it doesn't carry the same price points as Dainichi does. So if we was looking at Kohaku in that respect, and your budget is we're talking Tosai here, if you're around £300, £400, £500, that's going to go so much further at Hoshikin than it will at Dainichi. And the personal reason why I never bought at Dainichi for so long was because I couldn't get at the quality level I needed to feel like I was buying true Dainichi fish. So I left alone and focused on other places, because to me what I was getting for the fish was far more important than the brand or name of breeder it was coming from. And I'd encourage everybody to look at that in a similar way. That moves right up the scale, as I say. The price of the koi at these top farms is remarkable. You can get them to fit within budget, but personally, like I say, I think looking at other breeders is probably always a better option. So don't just go name chasing for the sake of it. Pay attention to the quality of what's in front of you. So that's where I'd start with that one. Next big one is one I've touched on a few times already, is the gender of the fish. Now, it's been a big thing in koi for a long time, of pushing and promoting and that you need to buy female. Female is what you need, primarily because of the sizes that they achieve, which is absolutely correct to some extent, versus what males used to be. And I say used to be because the game is changing massively on this one now. Male fish in the past 10 years have took huge leaps forward, again at these top farms more than others, where the lineages are just creating big fish and big bone structures anyway. That is having an influence on the male fish as well. We're seeing them now hitting the sizes. Just the All Japan Koi show this year just gone, the 90 boo class, there wasn't just one fish there in the male division. The grand champion was in the 90 boo, so 90 cm, absolutely whomping. Great big fish, great big body. The size divisions below them, the 85s, the 80s, all the rest of that kind of stuff are also, filling up more and more with these big bodied fish every year. And a lot of the flaws that used to be in male fish are just not there anymore. So yeah, when you pay attention to quality and focus just on that, and you pick the right bone structure anyway, a fish that's got the right bone structure to grow and gain volume will do it, whether it's male or female. So depending on your goals as a koi keeper, I think it's really important to get this bit right, because we're still generally seeing in the normal market that female fish are commanding probably 3 times the price of the equivalent quality male. So if you're in the realms of spending certainly less than £1,000 on Tosai or Nisai, I would absolutely say your best bet is to be buying male and not trying to chase the female dream on that one, because you're just not going to get a lot for your money, and you're going to be sacrificing a lot of quality elements in order to tick that female box, and that's something that I would never do. Even moving up the ladder in the £1,000 to £2,000 sort of price bracket, I'd pretty much say we're in a similar sort of position there, in all honesty. Yes, you can get some good female fish at certain breeders for that price point. Again, at the likes of the big guys, Dainichi Sakai's, Momoteros, that money's just not going to go far at all from a quality perspective. So you could possibly get female, but I think there'll definitely be a lot of compromises in there for that. Yeah, so that is a big one for me. I own a lot of incredible male fish. More and more big hobbyists in Japan and other Asian countries are moving more in that direction as well and paying a lot of attention to them. At this minute, you know, it really does stand that you can get so much more bang for your buck buying male without any real trade-offs. You know, it might just be, yeah, don't get me wrong, you know, there are more jumbo, and I mean real jumbo fish over 80, 85 cm that are female than male, but I don't think it's going to be long. Within the next decade, we're going to see another monumental shift, and I truly actually believe that within that next decade, we could see male fish openly competing for the real top awards against the females at All Japan level. So, you know, that's what's happening there. It just takes a little bit longer I tend to find, to filter outside of Japan into Europe and the UK, to be honest. So, yeah, that's one I've felt strongly about for a long time. If you really want to get the most for your money, pay attention to the brand of breeder that you're buying from. So don't just chase the name for the sake of it, and don't just chase female for the sake of it either, because you're going to find that you're diluting down a hell of a lot and making a lot of sacrifices just to tick those two boxes, to be honest with you. And the sort of third point, and one I'm really sort of keen on, is I think to be very open-minded and learn as much as you can about real koi appreciation. Yeah, this is a line that's sort of come from Alan Tate, one of the BKKS judges who did a video for Koi Talk. And it's really, you know, it's all about koi appreciation and not koi assassination. This is something that was an absolutely great line. And what I seem to find too much outside of Japan is a real focus on nitpicking at small irrelevant things, which leads you to never ever find fish that tick these unrealistic boxes, in all honesty. And that's being brutally honest. You know, perfect koi don't truly exist. Every now and again there might be something that you consider to be perfection, All Japan Grand Champions, but there's one of them every year. There's really not many fish ever competing for them awards, and generally there's always a little bit of something. You know, if you're looking at these sort of fish, even on the magazine pictures and stuff that you see, all them photos are slightly touched up, the same as you would see, you know, on social media with Instagram models and things like that. You know, a lot of this is false reality. Yes, those fish are superb, there's no doubt, but would I call them perfect? No, I wouldn't. And yeah, I mean, as you move down the age blocks, this is where you have got to be a bit more open-minded, because what you can tend to find is that through looking for unrealistic criteria in young fish, you actually overlook fish that could be serious bargains for you that are just sat there in dealers' tanks. Real simple examples I can give of this is, and just to tie into it as well, you know, longevity here also ties into value for money for me. The whole part of koi from a Japanese perspective used to be about getting fish. This is where Matsunosuke, the bloodline, became famous back in the day. Longevity of quality. These fish didn't peak until they were 8, 9, 10 years old, and they maintained that quality for a long time. So in my opinion, that's what we want to be looking for, is a fish that you're going to be happy with for as long as possible. And to do that, you need to make sure you buy it properly. So we've just recently been doing Asagi video selections. You can find them. We'll pop it in the comments below. With Asagi, what you tend to find is that there are constantly darkening fish. So what I tend to find a lot is in the general market is the ones that are selling the most are the darker ones that are a lot more finished at, say, Tosai and Nisai, quite heavily dark in the back with a lot of benny up on the belly already. All that's going to happen with these fish in 90% of the cases is that by the time they're 3, 4, 5 years old, they're going to be massively over darkened and look a complete and utter mess. Whereas when I'm doing the selection and looking, because I understand how they develop, I'm picking all of the lighter ones that in the initial phase don't look all that attractive. They've got very little benny on, and they're very, very light in the back, some actually showing no fucking whatsoever. But I know over time they come, and what happens is at the time, you know, those fish I'm selecting are 3, 4, 5 years old, they still look really nice and really good. Whereas, you know, that one that's been picked darker at the same age is possibly already a fish you're unhappy with at that point and looking to move on. And yeah, to be honest with you, what you'll probably find as well is those lighter ones in a lot of shops will be cheaper because they're harder to sell, because everybody's looking for those darker, more finished ones, which are actually the inferior quality fish. If you see where I'm going with that, the only instance where you want that more finished one is if you're trying to compete at a particular size division in a koi show. But yeah, it's really open-minded. And Showa, another great example, you know, and Shiro Utsuri. Shiro Utsuri actually is the one I'm going to focus on here because I see this a lot. One of my absolute favourite varieties, but one of the ones I find the hardest to sell. Everybody's looking for the 1 year, 2 year Shiro Utsuri, Tosai and this side that are there, finished, got the patterns, looking good. That is such a small amount of fish that actually get to that point at that age. Even in the long term, the 4, 5, 6 year olds and all the rest of it, so few of them actually deliver on it. It's challenge, it's tough. So the reason this is happening in the commander price is because there's so few. When they're showing and looking good at that age, they command the money because it's what everybody wants. It's not necessarily long term the best fish. A lot of the ones longer term that are the best fish take 3, 4, 5 years to actually become what they're going to be. And if you can learn just to look through the superficial bit, as in the sumi pattern being all finished at a young age, and focus on real quality, so the body shape, the skin quality, and just trying to assess the sumi quality and sumi potential, giving this fish some time and raising it, you're going to get much further on. I mean, what you can possibly find is you can pick 2 or 3 fish up with potential for the same price you would the one that's more finished. So what you might actually find you'd be better off doing is buying 2 or 3 you know, Shiro Utsuri with potential that aren't quite there yet with the sumi patterns, but good body, good skin from a good lineage, as opposed to the one that's more finished. And what you have to watch for here is as well, the one that's more finished doesn't always necessarily mean it's got the best sumi quality, because early showing sumi can be a sign of, it's going to get complicated here, but you know, in some bloodlines, inferior sumi, because it all just sits in the surface of the skin, whereas that takes more time to develop comes from deeper within. But coming back to the point, yeah, you could potentially get the 2 or 3, so you're hedging your bets, and out of the 2 or 3 you get 1 or 2 that turns out really well, and there's a couple of fish you can move on there and potentially even recover the cost of the one you end up keeping. Whereas you go all in on the one that's, you know, got that sumi pattern at the time. If it doesn't hold it, or if it is one where you've wrongly assessed the sumi pattern and it's not got the quality, then you know, that fish that you're going to pay probably a lot more for in the long run is going to turn out to be a lot more costly, and you're putting all your eggs in that one basket. So that's how I look at it, you know, to let you in on a big part of the secret. It's basically what I'm doing here with the raising at Koi Wholesale, you know, the big batches of fish. I get the best quality I can overall in the entire batch. So what gets released for sale is of a nice quality, but then also, you know, I've got the fish that I'm keeping all along the process, and it is just a game of hedging my bets. The Dainichi project, to be honest with you, video series that we've done, again, we'll pop a few links in the description. The reason I chose not to sell a lot of those fish at Tosai and still not this year is because the value of them at that point individually, based on what they paid for in the auction, makes them super expensive fish. Yes, as Tosai, but there's so many, you know, unknowns at this point. We don't know the gender, we don't know how they're going to turn out. Sometimes body deformities don't show until they get a little bit bigger, and we put a little bit of pressure on the fish with the body weight that they're gaining. So all this into account, you know, we might be talking a Tosai of £2,000 or £3,000 that, you know, a hobbyist goes all in on that one fish, and if it doesn't quite turn out as planned, they're not going to have a very good feeling about it. I wouldn't have a good feeling about it personally all along the chain. So in my instance, you know, we're buying so many. The collection last year, as big as it was, what happens is it's all about the law of averages. So and koi, you know, koi is a numbers game. You can't get away from that. One of the most expensive fish I bought in the Dainichi fish last year was incredibly poor. It's swimming around in one of the relatively cheap ponds here for sale at the minute. Whereas one of the cheaper fish that I bought, I think it was literally the cheapest, has turned out probably, you know, in the top 15 fish. So in my case, one counteracts the other. It's not too bad, but like I've already said, in you know, the case for you lot as hobbyists, yeah, you've got that thing that you go all in on that one fish and you're not hedging your bets in any way at all. And yeah, it can become quite disheartening. I know that for a fact. So worth bearing in mind, and that's probably the point there that I'll end on as well. You know, it is a bit of a numbers game completely. So hedging your bets when you're buying is going to be a really smart move, especially if you're raising tosi or buying tosi. You know, rather than absolutely stretching yourself to the maximum for the one fish, look at what you can do using some of the techniques and tips I've given you in this video to potentially buy two. So then you raise the two fish, and you know, one of them is likely to probably go in the direction you're wanting it to do, and you're always potentially going to be left with a fish there. You can move on to recoup some funds, to reinvest in something else. Yeah, just a much smarter way of doing it in my opinion. So yeah, there we have it. There's probably other stuff, you know, to think about, and no doubt when I even rewatch this back, we might end up doing a part 2 on this one, because I think it's, for me personally, I feel quite passionate about, you know, ensuring you guys get the most amount of fish for your money. And yeah, that's probably, you know, forgetting a lot out there what you've been told, opening up your mind to some new ideas, learning about a wider choice of varieties and you know, breeders and what's actually out there and what you can get for your money. So I hope you found this useful, and yeah, we'll be continuing this series and look forward to seeing what we come up with next.